Welcome or welcome back to my channel. I'm Hannah Blackwell, and today I am so excited to be bringing you my TBR of all of the classic and backlist fantasy books that I cannot wait to read. I have been reading fantasy for a while now, and I am super behind on all of those classic fantasy books, and I just want to try some out. I've read Lord of the Rings. I have read some Robert Jordan, though obviously that's more of like a modern classic, but I want to try some different things out, and so I've been collecting some things recently that some may constitute either as classic or backlist. So I don't have any books on this list here today that have been published after 2010. So these are all from before 2010. A lot of them were written before 2000. So a lot of them may be considered more backlist, some may be considered classic. That really depends on you and your own definition. But I want to read all of them, and so I wanted to share those with you today. I got this idea from Elliot Brooks, who just posted a very similar video, and it just got me very inspired to look at some of the classics on my bookshelf that I want to read. I also did literally just 2 days ago pick up a bunch of backlist fantasy books from a local used bookstore, and so I just thought it was so fitting, and I was just inspired to go ahead and film this video. If you haven't already subscribed, I would love for you to do so. It really helps out my channel grow, and you can be notified every time I post new videos if you click that notification bell. Please click the like button if you like this video or videos like it, and comment down below and let me know if there's any backlist or classic fantasy books that you really want to read. Also, let me know if you've read any of the books on this list, and let me know which one you think I need to get to first. Also, just before we start out, I want to let you know that I have a brand new camera setup, so I'm just hoping this works out well. If there's any glitches with anything, I guess let me know, but I do still film on my phone, but it is a new setup with a new ring light, and yeah, I'm hoping it works out. We'll see how it goes today. Without any further ado, let's just go ahead and get into this list. First book on this list is really what most, I think, would consider a true classic. This book, Dragonflight by Anne McCaffrey, was written in the 60s. So I'm pretty sure that would designate itself as a fantasy classic. And Cassidy from Covers with Cassidy recently read this book and really enjoyed it, and that definitely has me inspired to pick it up. I saw it at the used bookstore recently, and I just had to get myself a copy. And I think this is like a classic dragon fantasy book, and it's not too long. It's 300 pages, but the series is quite long. I don't really know much about this other than it looks like our main character is Lessa or Elisa, and she meets a queen dragon. She has some sort of hidden birthright. Yeah, so it sounds maybe like a little Chosen One-y, a little bit of like possibly like, I love the whole trope of a disguised noble. That's something that has always been something near and dear to my heart, and I love dragons, so I'm definitely looking forward to picking this one up. And I do hear it has really great dragon representation in it, and lots of dragons overall. There are some pictures in this book, and they're really nice. That's a really pretty picture. Looking forward to this one. Next, I have Janny Wirt's Curse of the Mistwraith. I believe that this is a 10-book series. I could be wrong. I know it's a long one. I know this is a really long series of epic fantasy, and I've heard nothing but amazing things about Janny Wirt's writing from Bryce. His channel is shelf-centered. It says it began with a Mistwraith that smothered all the world in fog and dampness. Sound familiar? And followed with a war that upended order and overthrew the rule of high kings. Now, after 5 long centuries, the only power that can challenge the Mistwraiths Now, after 5 long centuries, the only power that can challenge the Mistwraiths is split between 2 princes, Arathon, Master of Shadows, able to weave darkness to his will, and Lysar, Lord of Light, is sworn to justice. This sounds really amazing. I want to read this soon. I do. I have so many big series coming up, and I'm literally about to be in the middle of 2 series that both have 10 plus books. So that may be a bit much for me. But what's another 10 plus book series, you know? Like, let's do this. Next, I have a series by Kristen Britton, and the first book is Green Rider, and I think this is quite a long series as well. I've heard a few different booktubers talking about this series recently, and I think also Rachel, who is not a booktuber, but she is friends with like a lot of booktubers, and she recently read all these books. I think I've heard Alan from the Library of Alexandria talk about this too. I remember actually first finding this series just on Goodreads, and I shelved this maybe like a year and a half ago. And that was just literally from the cover alone. I love the idea. Like, I love a female main character epic fantasy series written by a female author. There's not enough of them, and it's really awesome when you look at some of these series written by female authors that were written before the 2000s, and I still want to give those a lot of attention and love, and I really don't know anything about it. There's horses in it. Next, I have what is, I think, like the newest series on this list, and I think this was written in the 2000s, mid-2000s, and it's the Legend of Drizzt series. I think that this universe is gigantic. Yeah, it looks like there's over 10 Legends of Drizzt books, and there's other series in the Forgotten Realms as well. And I think a lot of people talk about the Icewind Dale trilogy especially, which I think is the second trilogy in the Legend of Drizzt mini-series. I don't know. I know nothing about how this is set up. It's complicated. It's taken me a long time to figure out how to buy the start of this series. But I went with the first trilogy. So this is a bind-up of the first 3 books in the Legend of Drizzt series. So this is Homeland, Exile, and Sojourn. But I don't know anything about this. So Homeland, this says, still an infant, his mother held a dagger to his heart. Just a boy, he was initiated into a subterranean world of violence and evil. Finally, Drizzt Do'Urden escapes his dark legacy and ventures into the wild Underdark in search of his destiny. So not really much information there. A pretty cool cover. And I'm not sure, but like, is this inspired by Dungeons and Dragons? Because it says Dungeons and Dragons on the back. So I'm not really sure about that. But I do know that this is very classic. There's always lots of R.A. Salvatore books at my local used bookstore too, but never the first ones. So also this guy here is really creepy looking, and it looks almost like it could be a little bit sci-fi-esque, which I love a good like fantasy sci-fi. Speaking of fantasy sci-fi, I have the whole series, The Great Book of Amber, and this is 1 through 10 of the complete Amber Chronicles by Roger Zelazny. By Roger Z. I think this is fantasy, but with sci-fi elements as well. I'm guessing especially because of like this giant moon in the background here too. But I don't know much about this either. I don't know much about any of these other than like basically hearing that they're like super classic and super like you need to read them if you're a fan of fantasy. Witness the titanic battle for supremacy waged on Earth in the courts of chaos and on a magical world of mystery, adventure, and romance. Yeah, I don't know. I liked the cover, okay? This is on the list. Another total cover buy, and I got this maybe 6 months ago or so, and this is the Wayfarer Redemption by Sarah Douglas, another female author who wrote a fantasy before the 2000, like before 2000. Yeah, this was written in 1995, and this is about a prophecy and gods and magic, and an old prophecy about the return of the Forbidden Ones. So very classic epic fantasy feels. The cover had me. The cover is absolutely beautiful, and I really want to read this. And like I said, I really want to pick up anything if it's written by a woman before the 2000 mark, especially. Like, they deserve a lot of recognition, I truly believe. So really looking forward to reading this, and I do hear really great things about this on Goodreads too. I think it has some really great reviews, so looking forward to this. Another female author, and this is Jacqueline Carey's Kushiel's Dart. This has been on my TBR for a little bit now, and this is about a woman who has been struck by Kushiel's dart. So every time she feels pain, she feels pleasure. Every time she feels pleasure, she feels pain. And we're in this world where sex is really ingrained into society. I mean, okay, it is here too, but like, I mean, really ingrained and really open in society. And I think there's some like possible BDSM elements in here too, but it's not like a romance. This is like an epic political fantasy. She is like some kind of sex worker, but in this world that's not like a position that's like looked down upon or anything like that. And somehow she gets ingrained into these like political schemings or something, and conspiracies. Yeah. So I've heard really wonderful things about this series too, and it's definitely has me because it seems to have like a little bit of romance and sexy elements, but while being a political fantasy. So it has the potential to basically have everything I want in a book. So I definitely want to get to this one as soon as I can. Next, I have Gardens of the Moon by Stephen Erickson. This is the first Malazan series, and I don't know anything about this other than it's extremely complicated. And like, definitely people say it's not for beginner fantasy readers. This is grimdark fantasy according to many, and it's about a war. I don't know anything else because from what I've seen, everyone that tries to describe this series isn't really able to. So I haven't really seen any synopsis of this series on Booktube or anywhere else for that matter. I just know that it is out there as a must read. Keep an eye out because in the coming days and weeks you'll see some extra information and announcements out there, because there will be a coming read along for the series that I will be taking a part in. So definitely keep an eye out for that one, because I can't wait to get into this. I want to be one of those people that's like, oh yeah, I've read Malazan. Like, I've done that. Next, I have a series that I've been wanting to read for about as long as I've been wanting to read Malazan, and that is Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, the trilogy by Tad Williams. It's his most beloved trilogy from what I know, and the first book is Dragonbone Chair, and that's this book. And I believe this is a Norse-inspired epic fantasy series, and I do hear that Tad Williams has one of the most beautiful prose in epic fantasy, and that just has me right there because I'm a lover of prose. I'm a lover of a really, really well-written book, and Norse mythology really interests me, so I'm really excited for this one, and I'm hoping to get to it in 2023. We'll see how that turns out. I have two more books here. The first one is Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. This might be considered more sci-fi, but it's dystopian from what I know. Kind of like set in the 2000s, but at that time that was like the future, so it's like a futuristic type book where we have people who are really struggling due to climate issues, and there's a lot of discussion about politics and ignorance and startling vision of human destiny. And I've heard nothing but amazing things. I have not tried Octavia Butler yet, but I really, really, really would like to. This will be probably on my list of top 23 books to get to in 2023 because it's been on my TBR for a while now, and I really, really want to get to it. Finally, last but not least, we have the classic Dracula. And if you're going to have a classic, I mean, this is like the classic of all classics. This is written, I don't know how long ago. a very long time ago. I don't know. But this is the classic story of Dracula. It was not the first vampire story ever written, but probably one of the most famous vampire stories ever written. And it is a classic Gothic story that is written in an epistolary, I don't know if I'm saying that right, epistolary format. It's like written in letters. And I was going to be reading this October, but it didn't happen. And so I'm hoping to get to it. It's gonna be added to my 2023 list because I really want to get to it. And so yeah, this is definitely on my classic TBR. I feel like I need to read this book. I hear it's amazing, and I love vampires, so I really want to read like the first vampire books. I love books with Gothic vibes, but I haven't really read any of the classic Gothic books, so I feel like I should do that. I'm just not much of a classic reader usually, but if I'm going to read classics, it's going to be classic fantasy. Speaking of vampires, I have my vampire juice mug here because I'm still drinking my morning coffee, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys got some good ideas of some backlist or epic fantasy books that you might want to pick up. I feel like, yes, there are issues when you're reading an older book, but that doesn't mean they lose all of their importance and everything else that they have to offer us. So I'm definitely looking forward to reading a lot of these classics and backlist fantasy books. Let me know which one you want me to read next. If you've read any of these, what's the best one, and or what are some classic fantasy books that you've really enjoyed. If you haven't already subscribed, I would love to have you subscribe to my channel. Please click the like button, and you can follow me on social media. I have all of my social media linked down below, including my Goodreads, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Until next time, fellow readers, keep reading and living your best life. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away.